My dear 12th class economics students, Assalamu alaikum. In this lecture, we will discuss one more important subcategory of imperfect competitive market structure, and that is monopolistic competition. Dear students, the structure of monopolistic competition was developed almost simultaneously by the American economist Edward Chamberlain in his work named Theory of Monopolistic Competition and by the British economist John Robinson in her work Economics of Imperfect Competition in 1933. Now, what is a monopolistic market structure? Students, monopolistic competition is a type of imperfect competition where many producers, or we can say sellers, sell products that are differentiated from one another. That is, the products sold by firms under monopolistic competition are close substitutes, but they are not perfect substitutes. Thus, we can define monopolistic competition as a market situation in which there are many sellers of the product, but the product of each seller is somewhat different from that of the other. Thus, product differentiation is the important feature of monopolistic competition. Students, product differentiation is generally achieved through trademarks and brand names. For example, firms producing different brands of toothpaste like Colgate, Sensodyne, Pepsodent, etc., they are operating under monopolistic competitive market structure. Students, this form of market, that is monopolistic competition, it's a combination of both perfect competition and monopoly. It means that it combines the features of both perfectly competitive market structure and monopoly market structure. As I told you that the products under monopolistic competition are differentiated through trademarks. Such trademarks gives monopoly power to the firms. On the other hand, there exists competition between firms as they are producing differentiated yet close substitute products. So we can say monopolistic competition is a middle point of the two extreme market situations, which are perfect competition and monopoly. Now, students, coming to the features of monopolistic competition, the first important feature of monopolistic competition is that under this type of market structure, there are a relatively large number of firms, each satisfying a small share of the market demand for the product. It means that under monopolistic competition, each firm has a limited share of the market. Moreover, the number of buyers is also very large under such market situation. Second important feature of monopolistic competition is that the product is produced by various firms are not identical, but they are slightly different from each other. It means that the products under monopolistic competition are differentiated, or we can say that the products of the sellers are differentiated. Thus, differentiation implies that rival firms are selling products which are not perfect substitutes but they are close substitutes of each other. Technically, we can say that the cross price elasticity of demand between various close substitute goods in such a market is positive, and it would be very high due to the existence of close substitutes. Students, product differentiation, as I already told you, is achieved through trademarks and brand names. The close substitute goods under monopolistic competition, they may perform the same basic functions, but they have differences in qualities, such as they may have different size, different design, color, shape, distinctive packaging, difference in flavor, etc. For example, in many markets, such as in the markets of toothpaste, soap, smartphones, etc., producers practice product differentiation by changing the physical composition of products, by using special packaging, or simply claiming to have superior products based on brand name or advertising. Students' freedom of entry and exit is another important feature of monopolistic competition. It means that in monopolistic competition, it's easy for the new firms to enter the industry and the existing firms to leave it in case of loss. Students, the firms will enter the industry when the existing firms are making supernormal profits. With the entry of new firms, the supply in the market would increase, which would reduce the price, and hence the existing firms will be left only with normal profits. Similarly, if the existing firms are sustaining losses, some of the existing firms will exit the industry. It will reduce the supply, due to which price would rise. Thus again leads to normal profits for the existing firms in the long run. Students, it may be noted here that under monopolistic competition, entry of new firms may not be as easy or as free as under perfect competition, whereas under perfect competition, the new firms which enter the industry can produce identical or the homogeneous products, but under monopolistic competition, the new firms cannot produce identical products as produced by the existing firms. They can produce only new brands or product varieties, which may initially find it difficult to compete with the already well established brands and product varieties. Thus, we can say that under monopolistic competition, new firms have limited freedom of entry into the industry. Students, another important feature of monopolistic competition is the firms under monopolistic competition have partial control over price. As we know that each firm under monopolistic competition produces a product variety which is close substitute of others. Therefore, if a firm lowers the price of its product variety, some customers of other product or other products will switch over to it. This means as it lowers price of its products, quantity demanded of it will increase. On the other hand, if it increases the price of its products, some of its customers will leave it and buy the similar products from its competing firms. This means that under monopolistic competition, an individual firm is not a price taker, but it will have some influence over the price of its product. If it fixes a higher price, it will be able to sell a relatively smaller quantity of output, and if it fixes a lower price, it will be able to sell more. Thus, under monopolistic competition, a firm has to choose a price output combination which will maximize its profits. Students, this partial control over price leads to downward sloping demand curve of the firm under monopolistic competition, where quantity sold can be increased only by lowering price of the product. So, in case of perfect competition, firms are price takers. They have no control over the prices of their products. In case of monopoly and monopolistic competition, the firms are price makers. But the difference is, in case of monopoly, the firm have full control over the price of its products, whereas in case of monopolistic competition, the firms have partial control over the price of its products. Now coming to another important feature of monopolistic competition, dear students, firms operating under monopolistic competition spends a substantial amount on advertisement and other selling costs to promote the sale of their products. That is, the firms under monopolistic competition, they incur a considerable expenditure on advertisement and other selling costs to promote their sales. Promoting sales of their products through advertisement is an important example of non-price competition. So students, firms operating under monopolistic competition are often in competition with other firms producing a similar product, that is a close substitute, and hence they may need to advertise their products to let the customers know their differences. The advertisement induces the buyers to develop a brand loyalty. Some common methods of advertising for these firms are through local press, through radio, local cinema, posters, etc. Students, the goal of the firm under monopolistic competitive market structure is profit maximization, both in the short run as well as in the long run. However, in short run, the firms could make supernormal profits, but in the long run, they can make only normal profits. Because the supernormal profits in the short run can incentivize new firms to enter the industry, which would increase the market supply, thus reduce the price. With the reduction in price, the existing firms will be left with only normal profits in the long run. Students, another important feature of monopolistic competition is that every firm under such type of market structure has its own sale and price policy. It means a firm under monopolistic competition takes the prices charged by its rival firms as given and ignore the impact of its own prices on the prices of other firms. That is, a firm under monopolistic competition ignores the impact of its own price changes on their rival firms and also ignores the impact of the change in prices of the rival firms on his own price. Thus, the decision regarding price and output of any firm does not affect the behavior of other firms in the market. So, we can say that under monopolistic competition, there is no conscious rivalry among the firms. So, these are some of the important features of monopolistic competition, which will enable you to know how exactly this form of market structure works and how it is different from perfect competition and monopoly. Now, in our next lecture, inshallah, we will discuss the nature of revenue curves and demand curves in imperfect competition, both in monopoly and monopolistic competition. Thank you.